When was the last time you genuinely thought about what happens if your heat just stops? Not for an hour, not because someone forgot to pay the bill, but because a brutal, relentless cold snap slammed into your region and knocked out power for days on end. Sounds extreme, right? Except it isn't. Not anymore. Not even close. We've watched it happen in Texas. We've seen it completely paralyze the Midwest. Entire neighborhoods went pitch dark in the middle of winter. Families huddled together under thin blankets with absolutely no plan and no backup. Some people burned wooden furniture just to get through a single night. And those weren't reckless people. They weren't careless people. They just never truly believed it would happen to them. That's the dangerous assumption. That's the one that gets people hurt. Here's what changes everything, though. FEMA, the federal agency responsible for coordinating disaster response across the entire country, recently updated their cold weather preparedness recommendations. And when I actually went through the list carefully, I was honestly caught off guard. These aren't expensive gadgets. They're not high-tech, forward-thinking solutions or overly complicated systems. They're straightforward, practical, time-tested, and most importantly, they work when the power doesn't. They work when apps don't help, and smart devices are dead weight. So what I want to do today is walk you through specific items on and around that list. Things that could genuinely protect you and your family when temperatures crash hard and the grid buckles under pressure. Some of these you might already own somewhere in your home. Some will cost you less than a dinner out. Some will surprise you with how much thought goes into something so simple. But all of them could matter far more than you think when the actual moment comes and you realize you're on your own for a while. And before we get into it, I genuinely love to hear from you. Have you noticed anything unusual this season? Higher energy bills than you expected? Strange weather patterns that don't match what you grew up with? Empty shelves at the grocery store that caught you off guard? Drop it in the comments below. Because what's showing up locally in your town right now might be signaling something much bigger heading our way. Your observations matter. All right, let's get into it. Point 9, battery-powered personal warmers. Okay, I know exactly what you're thinking. Battery-powered heat? That sounds like something out of a sci-fi catalog. It sounds almost too clever to be real. But stay with me here, because this one is a lot smarter than it first appears. And once it clicks, you'll wonder why you never thought of it before. When the power goes out in a serious cold snap, your entire goal shifts fundamentally. You are no longer trying to heat your whole house. That's a losing battle without a furnace running. You don't have the equipment, the fuel, or the capacity to warm thousands of cubic feet of air indefinitely. What you're actually trying to do is much simpler. You're trying to heat yourself, your body, your core temperature. That's where the real danger lives, and that's where your energy and resources need to go. And that's exactly where battery-powered personal warmers shine in a way that almost nothing else can match. We're talking about rechargeable hand warmers, heated vests powered by standard lithium tool batteries, or compact electric heating pads that run off a portable power bank. None of these are going to warm your living room, but that's genuinely not the point. The point is survival by targeting heat where it counts most. Against your chest, along your spine, down at your feet where circulation slows first. These devices let you control exactly where the warmth goes. You can set the intensity level, use a timer to conserve battery, and keep your body temperature stable for hours during a blackout when nothing else is working. Here's something that trips people up every single time. Hypothermia doesn't announce itself loudly. You don't get a flashing warning alarm or a dramatic signal. What actually happens is subtle and slow. You feel a little cold, then a little tired, then a little foggy. Your thinking gets slightly slower. Your reactions get a touch delayed. By the time you fully realize something is seriously wrong, your core temperature may have already slipped to a dangerous level. That's the invisible danger that catches people completely off guard. A fully charged, rechargeable hand warmer pressed firmly against your chest under a jacket? That interrupts that slow slide before it becomes irreversible. It buys you critical time. And in any survival situation, time is the most valuable thing you can have. If you've got a family to manage, think about this strategically rather than just individually. One good battery pack can be shared between people. Rotated under blankets. Pass it between family members, especially elderly relatives and young children who lose heat faster. Keep everyone's core temperature stable while you wait out the storm together. Prep tip worth remembering: buy 2 or 3 of these warmers. Keep them charged as a regular habit, not just when a storm is officially announced. Because when severe weather turns fast, you often won't have the luxury of time to charge anything. You'll need them ready the moment the lights go out. Point 8. Heavy-duty blankets. This one might sound too obvious at first. Blankets, really? That's on the list? But here's exactly where most people make a mistake they don't even realize they're making. They assume any blanket will do, that a blanket is a blanket. And that assumption, in a real cold emergency, can be genuinely, measurably dangerous. The lightweight fleece throw draped decoratively over your living room couch is not going to protect you when your house drops 20 degrees overnight with no furnace running. It's soft. It's pleasant under normal, comfortable conditions, but it doesn't trap heat the way a truly heavy, dense blanket does when your life actually depends on it. What you want is weight and substance. Thick wool, heavy military-grade synthetic weaves, the kind of blanket that feels like carrying a small boulder when you pick it up. Those dense fibers create thousands of tiny air pockets, and those pockets are what actually hold your body heat against you over many long hours of exposure. Think about it this way. Your body is radiating heat constantly, every minute of every day. It's always working to keep you warm. A thin blanket allows that heat to escape rapidly into the cold air surrounding you. A heavy blanket catches that heat, holds it firmly, and reflects it back against your body. Over hours of a cold night, that difference is absolutely enormous and potentially life-saving. FEMA explicitly includes warm blankets in their emergency kit guidelines, not as a comfort item, as a safety necessity. And survival gear experts consistently point to wool and heavy synthetics as the superior choices. Not because they look impressive or feel luxurious, but because they perform when it's damp, when it's been cold for a long time, and when you absolutely cannot afford for your insulation to fail. Here's the real value that most people overlook. A heavy-duty blanket isn't limited to sleeping under. You can hang one across a doorway to seal off a cold, unused room from the rest of the house. You can press one tightly against a drafty window as an instant insulating barrier. You can lay one across a cold concrete floor to prevent ground chill from creeping up through your feet and legs. It works in all of these situations simultaneously if you have enough of them. It's arguably one of the most versatile pieces of emergency gear you can own. And it costs significantly less than most people spend on a single dinner out with the family. Don't wait for a storm warning to go looking for these. Grab 1 or 2 now, while your thinking is calm and clear. Store them somewhere accessible, not buried in a closet behind other things. And make absolutely sure they're the real deal, not decorative blankets that look substantial but don't perform. Point 7. Insulated window covers. Here's something most people genuinely never think about until they're already sitting there freezing. When your heat shuts off completely, the single biggest way warmth escapes your home isn't through the walls. It isn't through the floor. It's through your windows. Glass conducts cold with remarkable efficiency. On a freezing night, your windows are essentially thin, transparent panels of cold standing directly between you and the outside temperature. And they're actively, continuously pulling heat out of your living space and pushing it into the frigid air outside. Every hour, all night long. This is what people figured out through hard experience long before modern insulation existed. You don't fight cold by chasing it around the room. You block the primary entry points and you stop the loss at its source. The old school approach is still genuinely one of the best available. Cover your windows with something thick and insulating. Heavy curtain panels work well. Old wool blankets work even better. Even carefully layered cardboard backed with fabric provides significantly more protection than leaving bare glass completely exposed to the cold air outside. The U.S. Department of Energy has actually studied this problem carefully and published data on it. Properly insulated window coverings can reduce heat loss through glass by more than 40%. That's not a marginal improvement. That's nearly half the cold you're preventing from invading your home, simply by covering your windows thoughtfully and completely. During extended power outages in recent years, families who took this step early stayed dramatically warmer than their neighbors who didn't. Not because they had better equipment, not because they had more money, because they identified where the heat was escaping and they stopped it. And here's the thing about the danger of ignoring this entirely. Cold air doesn't pour through a window dramatically. It seeps, gradually, silently. You don't feel it happening in real time. You just gradually, almost imperceptibly, get colder and colder until your body starts responding in ways you can't fully control. Shivering sets in, fatigue arrives, and by that point, the room is already uncomfortably cold. When you're preparing for winter, don't focus only on heat sources. Focus equally on stopping heat loss first. Cover your windows. Use whatever thick material you have available. The better fitted it is to the window frame, the more effective it will be. If your grandparents used to hang quilts or blankets over windows every winter, they weren't being old-fashioned or eccentric. They were being smart about thermodynamics. Drop window shield in the comments if that's a memory from your own family. That kind of knowledge passed down casually still saves lives. Point 6. Fuel-powered radiant heater. Let's talk about actual heat now. Not warmth from a blanket, not shared body heat from huddling together. Real, radiating, space-changing heat, the kind that fills a room. Because sometimes that's genuinely what the situation calls for, especially when you have children, elderly family members, or people with medical conditions who can't tolerate sustained cold. A fuel-powered radiant heater runs on propane or kerosene. It doesn't need your electrical panel. It doesn't need your gas line staying pressurized. It works because it burns fuel directly, converting that combustion into infrared heat that radiates outward in every direction around it. The kind of heat that warms people and surfaces, not just the air molecules floating between them. This is precisely why FEMA includes portable fuel-powered heaters in their emergency response shelter kits. When power fails at scale across a large region, these heaters are what prevent mass hypothermia cases in the short term. They're the backup that the professionals reach for. Now, I have to be completely straight with you on this one. These heaters demand real respect, not just casual awareness. Real, consistent respect every single time you use them. The safety rules are not suggestions. Keep the heater on a flat, completely stable surface where it cannot be knocked over. Maintain at least 3 feet of clearance from anything flammable on all sides. Ensure the room has adequate fresh air ventilation at all times. Never attempt to refuel while the unit is warm or still running, and only ever purchase models that include both a tip-over automatic shutoff and an oxygen depletion sensor built in. Those 2 safety features are not optional extras you can skip to save money. They are what separate a genuine survival tool from a serious household hazard. Don't compromise on them. When you use a radiant heater correctly and responsibly, here's what actually happens in practice. The air in the room doesn't transform instantly, but your body responds quickly. Your chest relaxes. Your joints stop aching from the cold. The psychological heaviness of bone-deep, sustained cold lifts noticeably. You breathe more easily, you think more clearly, and that shift from freezing and frightened to stable and functional changes everything about your ability to manage the situation effectively. Because cold doesn't only threaten your physical temperature, it systematically threatens your ability to think straight and make good decisions under pressure. A working radiant heater breaks that dangerous cycle. Add this to your emergency prep kit deliberately and thoughtfully. Learn how to operate it safely well before you need it urgently. Practice setting it up and lighting it. Read the entire manual and store an adequate extra supply of fuel somewhere dry and accessible. Point 5. Shelf-stable emergency food packs. People consistently underestimate food when they think about cold weather survival. But think about this carefully. Your body burns significantly more calories when it's trying to maintain core temperature in a cold environment. You need fuel from food more urgently during cold exposure than you do on any ordinary comfortable day. Add to that the reality that grocery trucks stop running entirely during major weather events. Store shelves empty within 24 hours when community-wide panic buying begins, and your own refrigerator and freezer become completely unreliable if the power stays out for more than a day. Everything you've been relying on suddenly becomes unavailable at once. That's the specific scenario where shelf-stable emergency food packs shift from novelty to necessity. We're talking freeze-dried meal kits designed for long-term storage, retort pouches of ready protein, compact high-calorie bars designed for emergency use, MRE-style complete meal packets, and standard canned proteins with shelf lives measured in years. These aren't the sad, flavorless rations people imagine. Modern shelf-stable food has improved dramatically, and more importantly, these items store for years without any refrigeration and require almost nothing to prepare under difficult conditions. FEMA lists non-perishable food as a core element of any functional emergency kit. Not as a nice-to-have optional extra, as an essential item that belongs in every home before any emergency begins. The real danger here is invisible, just like so much of what cold weather does to you. Hunger doesn't announce itself as an emergency right away. It shows up first as mild fatigue that's easy to dismiss. Then your hands develop a slight shakiness. Your thinking becomes a little less sharp. Your emotional resilience under stress drops noticeably. And before long, your ability to manage the situation effectively starts to deteriorate. Not because of the cold directly in that moment, because your body simply has nothing adequate to run on. Having sealed, ready-to-eat food available means you can eat with minimal effort and minimal preparation. Tear open a pouch, add water, or eat it cold if needed. That keeps your body consistently fueled through the emergency. And that's not just physical, it's deeply psychological. Warm food during a genuine crisis sends a powerful signal to your nervous system that things are still manageable, that you're not in free fall. That matters more than most people realize. Rotate your stock at least once per year. Keep real variety available. Soups, grains, proteins, calorie bars. Store some in your main emergency kit and some separately in a grab-and-go bag. Distribute it. Because when things move fast and stress is high, you want food where you can find it immediately without having to think hard about it. Point 4. Classic kerosene lamp. When the power goes out at night in the middle of winter, darkness isn't merely inconvenient. It becomes a genuine safety hazard for everyone in the household. Flashlights run out of battery faster than you expect, especially in cold temperatures where battery capacity drops significantly. LED lanterns get dropped or fail mechanically. Your phone screen, which becomes your emergency flashlight by default, drains within hours. And then you've lost both your light source and your primary communication tool simultaneously. Modern lighting infrastructure assumes the grid is running, and when the grid stops running, modern lighting fails with it almost immediately. But a kerosene lamp genuinely doesn't care about any of that. It needs fuel. It needs a match. That's the complete list of requirements. Nothing else, no batteries, no charging port, no software update. These lamps can burn steadily for 15 to 20 hours on a single fuel fill. They cast a warm, consistent, reliable light that doesn't flicker off unexpectedly. And unlike every battery-powered option, as long as you have kerosene in storage, you have light. That simplicity is incredibly powerful when complexity is failing all around you. Here's a detail that most people overlook entirely. A burning kerosene lamp also produces a small but genuinely real amount of heat as a byproduct, not enough to warm a full room on its own, but enough to take the sharp edge off the cold when you're gathered around it closely. Enough to make a space feel slightly less hostile and slightly more survivable during a bitter extended night. Throughout the major blackouts of the 20th century, these lamps were what families gathered around instinctively. They read by them. They talked by them. They kept children calm with the warm, familiar glow. In some situations, they used the heat from the glass chimney to gently warm small amounts of food or water. They bounced light deliberately off mirrors to extend the illumination further through multiple rooms. They positioned them at stairwells and hallways to reduce the risk of falls in the dark. This is accumulated practical wisdom that quietly got forgotten as electricity became so consistently reliable that people stopped imagining life without it. But reliability, as we've seen repeatedly in recent years, is never permanent. Grids fail, and when they do, that quiet kerosene lamp sitting on a storage shelf becomes the most important object in your entire home. Store extra kerosene in an appropriate, approved container. Keep it in a cool, consistently dry place. Keep the lamp itself clean and the wick properly trimmed. One match, and you're not sitting in total darkness anymore. Point 3. Multi-fuel camping stove. Here's something that surprises people every single time a major winter outage happens at scale. Cooking becomes nearly impossible for most households within hours of the power going out. Electric stoves stop working the moment the power stops. Gas stoves with modern electronic ignition systems often fail too. Even if the gas line itself is functional, the electronic ignition valve needs electricity to operate. So you may have fuel sitting right there and absolutely no way to ignite it safely. Meanwhile, the microwave is dead, the oven won't respond, and suddenly a kitchen full of perfectly good food becomes frustratingly, dangerously useless. Enter the multi-fuel camping stove, a device that was specifically engineered for the middle of absolute nowhere, but turns out to be exactly as valuable in the middle of a city during a grid failure. What makes it genuinely special is exactly what the name directly states. It runs on multiple different fuel types: propane canisters, white gas, kerosene, denatured alcohol, and in some models, even small amounts of wood. You use whatever you actually have available. You aren't locked into a single specific fuel supply that might run out or be completely unavailable when you need it most. Set it up on a porch, in a well-ventilated garage, or on a balcony with adequate fresh airflow. Within just a few minutes, you have a working, reliable flame. You can boil water for safe drinking, heat canned soup, cook rice or oats, fry eggs if you have them. Real food, warm food, and that matters in ways that go far beyond basic nutrition during a survival situation. Warm food does something measurable and important to your mental and emotional state during a crisis that cold food simply cannot replicate. It signals to your body and brain together that the situation is stable, that you're managing, that you haven't lost control entirely. That psychological stability, that sense of agency and normalcy, is itself a survival resource that shouldn't be underestimated. These stoves are compact by design. Most fold down to roughly the size of a thick hardcover book. They're built to be durable under rough outdoor conditions, and they light reliably even in significant wind and sustained cold temperatures. If you've never camped a day in your life, you will still be able to figure one out in a few minutes. The one absolute rule that cannot be negotiated under any circumstance: never operate it indoors without serious, deliberate ventilation. Carbon monoxide from any combustion heat source is real, silent, odorless, and deadly, outside or in genuinely well-ventilated spaces only. Get one now. Practice using it before a storm season arrives. Know how to operate it in low light or total darkness, because that's the exact condition you'll face when you need it most urgently. Point 2. Thermal insulated water bottle. This one reliably surprises people because it sounds almost too simple to be significant. An insulated water bottle on a survival list. Really, but don't let the apparent simplicity fool you here. A genuinely high-quality, vacuum-sealed water bottle is serious cold weather survival equipment when you understand exactly what it's doing for you. Here's the core reason. When your heating system fails completely and you're fighting to maintain your core body temperature, warmth applied from outside your body only accomplishes so much. It helps, absolutely, but warmth generated from inside your body, from what you actively drink and consume, goes directly into your bloodstream, and from there, to your organs immediately. A single cup of genuinely hot liquid can raise your core temperature more effectively and more quickly than pulling on another layer of clothing. But here's the practical problem that nobody thinks about in advance. Without working electricity, keeping water hot for more than several minutes is a real ongoing challenge. You can't reheat on demand whenever you want. You heat it once using your camp stove or radiant heater, and then you're racing against the cooling process. That's precisely where a double-wall vacuum-sealed stainless steel bottle transforms the situation. Pour in boiling water, and 8 to 10 hours later, it is genuinely still steaming when you open it. That's not marketing exaggeration. That's the physics of vacuum insulation performing exactly as designed. This was actually an old household trick, that predates modern insulated bottles entirely. People used to fill metal thermoses with hot water before going to bed and tuck them carefully under the blankets near their feet. The heat radiated steadily and gently through the cold hours of the night. Your feet and core stayed significantly warmer as a result. You slept better and woke with more energy, and you had warm water waiting first thing in the morning. Modern, high-quality insulated bottles are dramatically more effective at this than old thermoses ever were, and they're versatile in multiple directions simultaneously. Store hot broth for sustained warmth and nutrition. Press one against your body under blankets as a personal heating aid. Use one to melt snow gradually into safe drinking water without losing all the heat instantly. The reverse function matters equally. In situations where you need to prevent water from freezing solid, these bottles handle that just as effectively. And hydration in extreme cold is something people dangerously neglect. Your body still requires adequate water even when it's cold. In some cold exposure scenarios, the hydration need actually increases. Dehydration in cold weather accelerates heat loss and impairs the body's natural warming responses. Keep 1 or 2 bottles filled with hot water every time a cold weather situation begins developing. Heat water proactively before you actually need it. It's one of the lowest tech, most immediately accessible, highest impact things you can do to keep yourself and your family safe. Point 1. Body warmers. We've reached the top of the list, and I want you to understand clearly and specifically why this item holds the #1 position above everything else we've discussed. Everything else we've covered today is primarily about managing your environment in some way. Heating the room, lighting the space, insulating the windows, cooking warm food, keeping water hot. All of that is genuinely important and worth doing. Every item on this list earns its place. But body warmers are about managing your body directly and immediately. In a cold emergency, that is the most fundamentally critical thing you can do, because ultimately everything else is in service of this one goal: keeping your body functioning normally under extreme thermal stress. When your core body temperature drops by just 2 degrees Fahrenheit from normal, your body begins making automatic protective decisions completely without your conscious input. Blood circulation gets redirected away from your extremities toward your vital organs. Shivering begins automatically as your muscles try to generate additional heat through rapid contraction. Cognitive function begins to measurably slow, making decision-making harder precisely when clear thinking is most needed. And if the temperature continues dropping, despite these responses, those automatic protective mechanisms stop being sufficient. Body warmers, the kind that activate through simple air exposure or an exothermic chemical reaction, provide targeted, sustained heat directly against your skin. You press them against your chest, your lower back, your abdomen. Those are the locations where your vital organs are concentrated. That's where heat protection matters most urgently, and that's exactly where these tools deliver it. They're thin enough to fit under clothing. They're flexible enough to conform to your body's shape. They're completely silent. They don't require electricity or any fuel source or any ignition whatsoever. You open the sealed packet, expose it to air, and within minutes you have up to 8 to 12 hours of steady, consistent, reliable warmth sitting directly against your most vulnerable areas. Emergency response teams working at severe weather shelters have documented this effect clearly and consistently across multiple events. People who had body warmers properly positioned against their cores showed significantly more stable vital signs throughout prolonged cold exposure. Far fewer cases of clinical hypothermia requiring medical intervention. Better maintained mental clarity under stress. Faster physiological recovery when moved to properly heated spaces. The danger these tools prevent is the one that approaches completely without fanfare or warning. You feel cold, which is normal and expected. Then you feel tired, which seems reasonable given the stress. Then you feel a little confused or slow, which you might attribute to fatigue. By the time someone recognizes that something is seriously physiologically wrong, the situation may already require emergency intervention to reverse. Body warmers interrupt that progressive decline reliably and early, before it gains unstoppable momentum. Think about storage strategically rather than in one centralized location. Keep them in your main emergency kit, yes, but also keep some in your car's glove compartment. Keep some in your everyday carry bag. Keep some in coat pockets that you use regularly in winter. Keep some in the bag of your most vulnerable family members. Buy in meaningful bulk quantities. They're genuinely inexpensive per unit. They're lightweight and take up almost no space. They store for several years without losing effectiveness if kept in their sealed packaging. For the cost of a couple of coffee shop visits, you can have a dozen or more of them staged and ready across multiple locations. When everything else has failed and the cold is pressing in from all sides and nothing electric or mechanical is working anymore, this is what sits against your chest. This is what holds your body in the fight. This is what buys time until help arrives or conditions improve.